Welcome everyone to the MEPN or Master's Entry Program in Nursing information session here at the Betty Irene Moore School of Nursing here at UC Davis. My name is Stephanie and I am a part of the admissions team for the School of Nursing. Again, thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedules to learn more about what we have to offer with our program and here at our school. So for the next hour or so, we'll highlight a bit more about what it's like to be a part of our unique school and why you might want to choose a MEPN program to advance your degree and what specifically makes our program unique. You'll hear from our program director, learn more about the admissions process, and we'll also have time for a Q&A session here at the end. As I mentioned earlier, my name is Stephanie and I work alongside my colleague Amanda Yee, who is also here at our information session. And I will now go ahead and introduce you to Dr. Shanna Ruggenberg, our director of the MEPN program. Dr. Ruggenberg is a RN and educator who brings years of experience in nursing education and a passion for supporting nursing students in their goal to become RNs. I'll go ahead and hand it over to Dr. Ruggenberg to introduce herself and move forward with the presentation.
Great. Thank you, Stephanie. Really appreciate it. And to all of our participants, you really have a wonderful team here to support you with what you need to know as you're making your decisions about who to apply to. As mentioned, I'm a RN for a lot of years, have been in the education side of things for about 25 years, and before that was in clinical practice, mostly in the area of obstetrics, a little bit in the area of general adult health. But I really love the education side, and so glad that you're here and considering the program. Let's move to the next slide, please. So I think one of the first things that you have to think about in going to nursing school is which program or programs, plural, you're going to apply to. So why this program? I would say that, first of all, who we are, it really starts with who's in the name. Betty Irene Moore was a person who really wanted to change not just a small bit of healthcare, but a really large bit of healthcare. After having some family situations, she and her husband were inspired really to put some of their funding into starting a school of nursing, and they wanted that school to focus on the attributes that you see on the screen to the right. So really looking at how do we work together as both as nurses and healthcare providers, but also within our communities to make certain that what we're doing works for the people that we're serving. There's always been an emphasis on ensuring that care providers are representative of the communities that they serve. Also, because this is a master's entry program, and because nurses need to be leaders, whether they're at the bedside or in the organizational side, there's a focus on leadership, and collaboration kind of fits with both leadership and the community connection in that we don't work alone. And then finally, on innovative solutions. And we're seeing a lot of that in evidence through even things like AI, and how does that impact not only education, but how does it impact care, and how can we harness it to really make a difference in healthcare? So that's just one example of the types of things that we're seeing in solutions. So you can read the vision and the mission. They're, of course, on our website as well. But let's move on to the next slide, where we can talk a little bit more about the program that hopefully will yield another group of very excited graduates. This is, I believe, our first cohort that graduated, and we currently have our 10th cohort in the program right now. We actually have cohorts 9 and 10. 9 will graduate in December, and cohort 10 will graduate in December of 2026. So a fairly young program. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide, please. So as you apply for nursing program entry, you, like many other people who are looking to be nurses, have what we hope is a desire to take care of patients in a holistic way. A couple slides ago, I mentioned community connection, and part of that is making sure that what we do for our clients is what they need us to do for them, not what we think needs to be done always, but doing the things that need to be done and that our patients or clients want us to do. So we do that in a variety of ways. Direct patient care is the most obvious one. It's the one that people think of when they think of a nurse who's providing direct care and assessing a patient and giving meds and intervening and managing the care. We do that through advocacy and working with others, of course. And then there are also nurses who move on to engage in research, but every nurse employs research. So although I don't directly research like how to cure cancer, but I employ techniques that are evidence-based to take care of my patients if they have a disease like that. We know there are many pathways to becoming a nurse. There's three basic pathways to becoming a registered nurse. One is through an associate degree program. The next is through a baccalaureate degree. You get a Bachelor of Science in Nursing. At the end of, well, I'll say that in a moment. The third way is to enter in a master's entry program, or sometimes called entry-level master's or ELM program. And all three of those programs prepare people to take NCLEX, become an RN, and go seek employment as an RN. All three of them do exactly the same in terms of preparation, but for the Board of Registered Nursing's requirements, but they approach it differently. And some will have more education in certain areas than others will, but we all meet the same minimum standards. And at the end of that, the major difference in terms of being a nurse is the degree with which you enter the profession, an associate or a Bachelor of Science in Nursing or a master's in nursing. But the direct patient care starts out very similar. What we hope is through our program is that these attributes that we focus on and the core attributes are those that really prepare you to advance your nursing career very quickly on to, in addition to being a leader at the bedside, to being a leader, a change maker, an innovative practitioner in the clinical side as well. Again, regardless of path, there are many opportunities in nursing that allow you to show your expertise, to demonstrate advanced knowledge. If you noticed my signature or the way my name was listed very early on, it had kind of an alphabet soup after it. And that basically is saying what degree I had, what additional certifications I had, what additional license I might hold. And so those are opportunities that many nurses pursue just as a way of maintaining current in the profession and demonstrating both to themselves and to their clients and what their knowledge brings to the table. Next slide, please. So a little bit about the program itself. Entry-level masters, by their very nature, are pretty fast-paced programs. This one takes place over 18 months. Students start with us during the summer quarter, so they actually start the program in the very end of June or the very 1st of July. And then 18 months later in December, they complete the program. So our next admission cycle will be in summer of 26, meaning that's when the students who are admitted will matriculate. They'll start in summer of 26 and then graduate in December of 27. The enrollment is, because it is fast-paced, it is also full-time. There's not a part-time option in the program. And so students take between 13 and 16 units each quarter, and that includes theory and clinical hours in that. The degree requires approximately 18 units that focus on what we call a graduate core, meaning those are things that apply predominantly to the master's degree that you're getting. 30 hours of clinical and about 43 of theory, and those are predominantly focused on Board of Registered Nursing requirements for certain kinds of knowledge and skill, as well as requirements for the public health nurse, which is something that you would not get necessarily in an AS degree program. You're not prepared to become a public health nurse, but in a baccalaureate, you might. In our program, it's not an option, it is part of our curriculum. At the end of the program, you show evidence of having completed the program objectives through a capstone portfolio project and then a comprehensive final exam. I've only mentioned the one exam. Of course, there are plenty of exams along the way so that you have a chance to assess your knowledge, how you're progressing. And then there's a comprehensive final, and those last two bits are what allows you to have the Masters of Science in Nursing granted by the University of California. Once you're done, grades are in, everything is done in the end of that December when you complete. Then at that point, once your degree posts, you are made eligible to take the NCLEX exam. You're made eligible through the Board of Registered Nursing, but your program here fulfills the educational component of that. You're also eligible to apply for a public health nurse certification at that point, which is a requirement for public health nurses in California. Next slide, please. So a couple of highlights then. In this program, we really believe in active learning. It's an interesting balance. Some of us like to learn by listening, some of us like to read, some of us like to do. You're going to get all of that in the program. It's not one to the exclusion of the other. But we do believe in active learning, which means creating learning and digging in to learn the material you need to learn. And I'm going to say on your own, but I'm going to say with a guide. Your teachers are your guides through this process who point you to evidence-based resources, help you pull it all together, and guide the process. What you see here is some of the unique activities that we do. We have a couple of simulations that focus on really in-depth knowledge of taking care of people in a home health situation, end of life, disaster scenarios, living with poverty, as well as smaller simulations that focus on learning content area. So obstetrical care, pediatrics care, how to plan your morning routine in a acute care hospital. So those are some of the broader active learning activities that we do. And then, of course, all the clinical courses, all those hours that were on the previous slide are done to help you apply what you're learning in the theory part of the course to the clinical environment so that you get a chance to really learn and develop your skills as you go. Next slide, which I think might be me turning it over
Yeah,
to my colleague Stephanie. Thank you.
perfect. Thank you, Dr. Ruggenberg, for the thorough overview of the program. Now we're going to go ahead and switch gears a little bit and talk about our admissions process. So applications for 2026 enrollment are now open. All of the information that you see here on the screen and that I'll be going over is also posted on our website, just in case you need to look back on it later on. But as far as what we're looking for, we are going to look to see that you have a bachelor's degree completed with a 3.0 cumulative GPA minimum. We are also going to look at a science prerequisite GPA, and that should also be 3.0 minimum. We're going to look to see that you have all of your prerequisite courses completed, and I'll do an in-depth kind of review of those in the next slide. You're also going to be submitting a statement of purpose within the application. You'll be submitting 3 letters of recommendation as well, official transcripts, and I want to highlight that we will need official transcripts from every institution that you have attended post-secondary, so after high school. Even if it's just like one random course that you decided to take, we will still need those official transcripts. The GRE is not required, and the TOEFL or IELTS exams may be required for international applicants. So moving forward to our prerequisite courses, the following list is what we're going to look for. So we look for a human anatomy and human physiology course with a lab for both of those. We're also going to look for a microbiology or bacteriology course again with a lab, chemistry with lab. So all of the sciences do need to have that lab course with it as well. We're going to look for a statistics or epidemiology course, a psychology course, and this can be general or higher if you've taken higher psychology courses. We look for sociology or cultural anthropology, as well as human development across the lifespan. And I just want to emphasize that this does need to cover from life to death. We are also going to look for a communication part of the prerequisites, and this has three different categories that we look for. So it must cover English composition or writing, group communication, and verbal communication. And I'll explain a little bit more with the communication course. So oftentimes students take more than one course within these categories to meet the unit requirements. So just a couple more things that I'd like to point out. Again, like I mentioned, the top science courses will be used to calculate your prerequisite science GPA. And again, we look for a minimum of 3.0. So that'll be the human anatomy and physiology, microbiology, and chemistry. Those are the courses that we use for that. For anatomy and physiology, these courses must be completed within the last 5 years from the date that you apply. You must earn a minimum grade of C or higher within all of these prerequisite courses. Each course must be a minimum of 3 semester units, and then science courses are usually a minimum of 4 if it includes that lab. Sometimes the lab can be taken separate from the main course. So prerequisites again must be completed with a letter grade at the time that you apply. They cannot be in progress. For the human development course, like I mentioned, this must cover across the lifespan, so from birth to death. And for the communication course, it covers those 3 different principles that I mentioned and must be a minimum total of 9 quarter units or 6 semester units. So again, oftentimes individuals will take more than one course to fulfill each of those unit requirements. There's also a sample prerequisite page on our website where you can view courses that may satisfy the requirements offered at different universities. It's not a comprehensive list, but it'll give you an idea of what we might look for so that you can start to narrow down what you have completed and what you haven't. Alrighty, so like I mentioned earlier, applications for our summer 2026 cohort are now open, and you can submit your application via Nursing Cats. The deadline to apply is going to be November 1st at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I really like to highlight that that is Eastern Standard Time because we are in California, so we're on Pacific Standard Time. Please don't wait till the last minute and then run into an issue of, having missed that deadline. From there, you can see on the right-hand side of the screen kind of a layout of the timeline that you could expect. Once applications have been submitted and reviewed, a selected group of applicants will be invited to submit a secondary application via the UC Davis Graduate Studies website. This is something that all of our graduate programs have to do, and you'll receive more instructions if you are selected to move forward. So at this time, you'll only have to worry about your nursing CAS application and ensuring that we have received everything from transcripts to letters of rec, all of those other details, and then you'll receive further instructions if you are selected to move forward. Speaking of the nursing CAS application, I just wanted to give everyone a couple of tips since the deadline is coming up here pretty quickly. So once you have submitted your application, there are no changes that you can make. From there, I want to encourage you to really be thorough when you are filling everything out. Don't leave any prompts blank. If we're asking something, it's because we want to know the answer to that question. And please pay close attention to all of the details within the application. Read things multiple times over just to ensure that you're not missing anything, and ensure that you're following the directions as they're listed on that application. Also, I just want to mention to please be mindful of the PTE or paid transcript entry, I believe it's what it's called, service that Nursing CAS offers. Although it might seem tedious for you to input all of your information for your transcripts manually, I really encourage you to do that route rather than paying that extra, I think it's $80 for the PTE service, especially since we're so close to the deadline. It usually takes Nursing CAS it can take them, I believe, up to 10 weeks for them to complete that for you. And they don't start that process until after the application deadline, I believe. So by the time all of your information has been inputted, we have already passed the deadline, and that could cause you to not be reviewed. So I really just encourage you to input your information yourself. Also, please utilize the resources that Nursing Cast provides for you. If you have questions on submitting transcripts or on different items within that nature, they have a very big list of resources that give you like step-by-step instructions to completing certain things. And they're very, very helpful as you're completing your application. Before I move forward to the next slide, I just wanted to check in with Amanda to see if you wanted to add anything regarding the Nursing Cast application.
Um, sure, I can add, let's see, we've been kind of starting to initially screen applications. We don't operate on a rolling basis, so it's not, first come, first decision or anything like that. We are going to wait until November 1st to actually start reviewing applications, but in terms of looking at prerequisites and things like that, we've already started kind of looking. So I'm just trying to think about what are things that we've seen thus far. I just wanted to give an example of when my colleague Stephanie mentioned don't leave prompts blank. An example of that would be supervisor or duties, supervisor information or the duties section within your experience section of your application. So you're able to submit information regarding volunteer experiences, any paid or volunteer healthcare work, things like that. Any non, any non clinical employment. Oops, my video. There. Any non-clinical employment you could also add there, but any question or prompt that is requested in the application should have a answer to it. So that includes supervisor information, supervisor contact information, what you actually did at that volunteer experience, whether you got paid for it, whether we can contact your we can contact your supervisor. So all of those things, we request that information for a reason, so please include it. And especially for supervisor contact information, we would prefer to see a business email address in lieu of a Gmail or Yahoo email address in case we need to verify your hours or your work for whatever reason. So please keep those things in mind. If you have any questions about a prompt and you're not sure how to answer, it doesn't apply to you, you can reach out to us to see should I leave it blank? Should I put not applicable? How should I go about doing that? So please reach out to us if you have any questions. An additional mention about the PTE, professional transcript entry. Like Stephanie mentioned, nursing, this is an extra service that Nursing Cast offers if you want to pay an additional fee. They actually don't start that process for you. You get in line and you actually don't start the process until you've submitted all of your application materials. So that includes letters of recommendation, as well as transcripts. So they're not going to start that. At this point in time, if your application, if you have requested PTE and it is not, you're still in line, I would say contact Nursing Cast to try and get that withdrawn. At this point in the cycle, it is too late for you to be able to do that and then successfully earn a complete status by the deadline. And Stephanie, I think you kind of mentioned this before, but by November 1st, the deadline, we need to see that you have a complete or verified status, one or the other. I know whenever we do these info sessions, a lot of applicants are like, I'm not sure if I'm going to get verified by November 1st. That's okay. Just a complete status awaiting verification is perfect. But please log into the Nursing Cast Applicant Help Center. There is a screenshot of what the website looks like on the slides. And if you select submitting and monitoring your Nursing Cast application, which is the bottom right hand box on that screen, it will go through the different stages and go through the different statuses, application statuses, um, uh, as you go from like submitted or in progress submitted all the way to verification. So to learn more about what we need at UC Davis by the deadline, I recommend reading through that page. Again, if you leave with anything and you're applying this week or this month, we say don't forget that the deadline is 11:59 p.m. Eastern time, and also that we need a complete or verified status by the deadline.
Awesome. Thank you, Amanda. Okay, let's go ahead and move forward to preparing your application. So starting off with your statement of purpose, this is the part of your application that you have to complete control over. So before preparing to write your essay, keep in mind that someone has already looked at your application. So we know your educational history, we've seen your coursework and your achievements, we know your GPA, all of that stuff. This is now your opportunity to share aspects of your professional and personal life that are not in the rest of your application. Try to focus on what skills or attributes you have that you want to highlight. Um, how are you going to use this essay to help round out your application, basically? So some reminders, this sounds cheesy, but be true to yourself. Essays that stand out are the ones that are authentic and give the reader an idea of how your experiences led you to make this decision in pursuing this MEPN career. And we can really kind of point out when you are writing what you think we want to hear. So again, take time and just be yourself. Take time to reflect as well. Think through why you want to be a nurse, what your goals are, why do you want this degree and why do you want it now? Why do you want to specifically attend UC Davis? Think of all of these things and reflect on that information. Also, take time to refine your essay. Once you have a draft, set it aside for a couple of days or a couple of hours, whatever you have time, and then look back on it and start to refine and make edits. Tighten the structure, add or remove, filler words that aren't really needed, clear up your sentences, anything like that. I also usually recommend, if you have someone that you really trust, have them read your essay and see if they have any feedback to give you, just to ensure that what you're presenting to our admissions committee really is a true reflection of what you want to present to them. Okay. So now for your letters of recommendation, these should describe your strengths, your potential for completing the program, and your potential to be a successful future nurse. So these letters, again, should further discuss your impact on an organization, your ability to collaborate and be a team player. They should describe your leadership skills and overall qualities that will make you an excellent nurse in the future. Some tips when approaching your recommenders. I encourage you to ask your potential recommenders right away. Give them as much time as possible to provide a well-written and well thought out recommendation. Remember that they're all most likely working professionals. So again, giving them as much of a heads up as possible is, I'm sure, going to be appreciated by them, but it also, again, gives them time to write a good letter without that tight schedule or that tight timeline. If you can, meet with them to discuss your career goals and what you hope to get out of this program, just so they have that knowledge. And also, these individuals should be current, and by that I mean that they should be individuals who have recently interacted with you, ideally within the last 2 years, just because we feel like those people may know you a little bit better than someone who you might have met 10 years ago and maybe haven't spoken to since then. That being said, that is not a hard requirement. It's just a high recommendation that we put out. So some examples are professors, employers, or someone you volunteered with who has overseen you. We just ask that you not submit letters of recommendation from friends or family. For the letters of recommendation, they will be submitted electronically directly to NursingCast. So in the application, you'll be asked to list your recommenders' name and their contact information, and they'll be sent a link with further instructions for them to complete their portion of this part of the application. So again, you won't be emailing it directly to us or anything like that. They'll receive a link from Nursing Cast with instructions to complete their portion. Alrighty, so now I'm sure you have come up with a couple of questions as you've listened to our information session. We'll go ahead and move forward to the Q&A portion. Just some reminders before we do dive into that. Again, applications do close November 1st at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're going to keep emphasizing that time just to ensure that you don't forget and you submit your application on time. If for whatever reason we don't get to your question during the Q&A today, please feel free to send us an email. We are happy to assist you, especially with that deadline coming up. And again, visit our website if you want to review any of the items that we went over today. Okay, so let's open up the Q&A here.
Stephanie, if it's easier, I can read out some questions for you. Thank you, everyone. Actually, before we get started, for your thoughtful questions. We're seeing a lot of like similar themes, so I'll try and help Stephanie by like grouping them together. There are also some here for Dr. Regenberg, so I will let you know when those are for you. One of the questions that we got from an applicant was about the bachelor's degree GPA calculation. How is it calculated, and what does the bachelor's degree GPA calculation look like for an applicant if they have two bachelor's degrees?
Okay, so your bachelor's degree GPA is set upon your graduation. So whatever is listed on your official transcript is what we are going to look for, and that's granted by the institution where you completed your bachelor's in. If you happen to have two bachelor's degrees, we will look at the higher GPA of the two.
Thanks, Stephanie. And then another follow-up-ish question about that and along the same vein. If I was a transfer student as an undergraduate, how does that affect my bachelor's degree GPA?
Sorry, you cut out for me a little bit.
Oh, I'm sorry. So the question was, if someone was a transfer student as an undergraduate and got some courses transferred, let's say they went to UC Davis and had units and grades transferred to UC Davis from their previous institution, is that included in their bachelor's degree GPA?
Yeah, so it'll again, it'll be determined by your institution, but they most of the time I would say they factor in those transfer credits as long as it's within the time of when you completed your bachelor's. Amanda, I don't know if you want to add anything.
Yeah, I think that's like Stephanie said. I'm trying to see like what's the easiest way for us to explain this. I think, like as Stephanie said, the overall or the cumulative GPA that's like listed on your degree granting institution transcript is what we use. So if your previous undergraduate institution, if they fold your transfer courses into that, then that's how it is. If not, then then we won't consider the transfer courses for that GPA calculation specifically. It just depends on your degree granting institution's policies. I have a question for Dr. Regenberg. The question is, what does a weekly schedule typically look like for students? I would assume that means like maybe sim, clinicals, didactic, studying, maybe after class.
All of the above.
Yeah.
I guess a little longer answer would be you can generally expect to be occupied 5 days a week. It may not always be Monday through Friday. There may be some quarters where one of those weekdays you're not expected to be in class or clinical, but a weekend day you may be. It is possible that some of the clinicals will be on the evening shift, meaning like 3 to 11 p.m. At the end of the program, it's possible some of the shifts would be night shift. And so there's a really wide variety of what the schedules look like. We try and put classes on typically 2 to 3 days of the week. And then clinical and skills are on 2 to 3 days of the week. And then around that, you build the rest of your life. I know it doesn't sound like there's any room left, and that is true of a nursing school program. It can often feel like there's just not enough time, but we do our best to make the schedule manageable, and we ask that our students do their best to keep their schedule as accessible and available as possible for their studies.
Thank you, Dr. Regenberg. Another question for you about kind of the final capstone project. Can you go a little bit more into that topic? What I know students have a lot of support from faculty, and for that, it seems like a big endeavor, but can you talk about maybe some of the topics that are tackled during like the practicum, or what they can expect?
Sure. So the portfolio is really intended to be a compilation of what has happened over the whole program. So most of the required elements are examples of work that has been done already in the program, already submitted, already graded, already applying to a course that you then provide a copy of for your grad review committee to look at. And then there are a few things that are completed during the final term, some looking forward documents. And again, those are things that are part of the course assignments in a specific course. So it's not generally things in addition to whatever your course assignments are. It's more a collection of things that are already part of your assigned coursework.
Thank you. Hopping back to admissions questions, lots of questions about prerequisites, so we'll tackle some of them here. But generally, there's some questions about where can I take prerequisites if I didn't complete them as an undergraduate student?
So you can complete prerequisites from any accredited institution. That includes online or in person at like a community college or anything like that.
And there are also some questions about like when do those prerequisites need to be done? So like as Stephanie mentioned, on that first kind of introductory prerequisite slide, those grades need to be completed and listed on your nursing CAS application by the November 1st deadline. So please please keep that in mind, you know, if you're still working on your prerequisites and you haven't completed them, you may want to consider waiting another cycle to apply, because we do require those, both the science and the non-science prerequisites. Another question here that I had was about chemistry. Can you specify which chemistry course I need for this program's prerequisites?
Amanda, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe any general chemistry course will be accepted as long as it has that lab and is completed with a letter grade of C or higher.
Yeah. And then I saw one specifically asking about like organic chem. That is totally fine. So whether it's organic chem, general chem, introductory, biochem, and if you've taken a large number of chemistry courses and their associated labs, whichever your highest chemistry grade is, both the lecture and the lab, we will use that for our prerequisite science GPA. So I hope that helps for every kind of section, like for example, if you've taken multiple microbiology courses, whatever the highest grade you earned in one course, we'll use that in that calculation. So hopefully that helps clarify a couple things with organic chemistry or general chemistry.
And really quickly, just to add, an C or higher does not include a C minus. So C or higher from there.
Thank you. Let's see, scrolling through, sorry, just scrolling through a lot of these questions. And as Stephanie is answering questions, more coming in. Stephanie, can a human development across lifespan course count as both that prerequisite as well as psychology, or can I not double dip, basically?
No, so yeah, you cannot double dip. You would have to take an additional psychology course to cover the psychology prerequisite or an additional human development course if you wanted to do that. But basically, one course only counts for one prerequisite.
And on that lifespan development uh, topic, there's a question. I'm a UC Davis student. Does the HDE 100 series A, B, and C, does that satisfy the lifespan development prerequisite, or are you not looking for a series course?
It does satisfy the prerequisite, but the entire series has to be completed for that specific course from UC Davis.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Mhm.
Dr. Ruckenberg, a couple of questions for you. Someone was asking, when do students start clinical rotations?
Well, technically week 1, but I'll broaden that just a touch. In the first quarter, there's quite a bit of work that's done in the skills lab, the skills and simulation space that we have in Moore Hall, which is the building you're seeing behind Amanda there. And and then about week 3, for a part of that time, students are in the hospital setting with for a very short shift, but kind of getting used to the flow and how to interact and where to find information. So right away.
Thank you. Another question for you. After graduation from this particular MEPN program, is there a bridge program for the FNP or CRNA program?
It's not a bridge program per se, meaning there's not a specific thing that you do that when you graduate this that you then need to do to move to the next bit. I'm not explaining that very well, but what you do need to do for example, for a CRNA program is you do need some very specific kinds of nursing experience. And for an FNP program, you may not need as much direct care nursing experience, but you need to be licensed. And my recommendation is that you have a pretty good sense of the kind of work you want to do. And FNP takes care of a broad array of patients, of course, clients. So not a bridge program per se, but there are at least 3 classes that you take as a part of the MEPN program that you do not need to repeat if you go into into any of our Doctor of Nursing Practice courses.
Thank you. And then I guess on that topic of like thinking about your future, even past licensure, well, actually, this one is about licensure. Someone's wondering, can I choose to complete just the pre-licensure component of the program without completing and earning a MSN? I'm sorry.
Not in this program.
So that option is not available. It'll be one and the same, like your MSN as well as the pre-licensure requirements.
Right. And I can expand very briefly. Part of that is because you need the hours, and it is part of what awards you a graduate degree, and we do not have a non-degree option to complete.
Thank you. That was helpful. I have one that I can answer, and Stephanie, please chime in if I missed anything for this. There were a couple of questions about, well, I'll read this one. If someone doesn't have experience in a hospital setting, does that put them at a disadvantage when applying? So I think my answer to that, kind of knowing how faculty or the review process goes, you are not required to have any sort of hospital or clinical experience prior to this program. We have admitted applicants that have not had that, have had other types of experience prior that are not clinical, and that's fine. So it is not a requirement for admission. That being said, if we do see that you do have like clinical experience or patient care experience, it could be helpful for your application. So it's something that our faculty will note during the review. It's something that is taken into consideration, and why it's so important to thoroughly fill out that experiences section of your application. So it's not required, but it is reviewed and can potentially help if you have some sort of hospital or clinic setting. And that doesn't have to be, you know, work as a CNA or a medical assistant or an EMT. We do have applicants that are working in those areas and want to go into nursing. It could be that you have some sort of volunteer experience in a hospital or clinic setting. It could be that you have a different type of job that's like kind of related to healthcare, and that's how you became interested in the field of nursing. So that is pretty broad in terms of how we review, you know, healthcare experience or hospital or clinic experience, but it is helpful during the review process. Okay. Stephanie, I have more questions for you, kind of grouping them, but did you see any that you particularly wanted to address?
Yeah, I just wanted to highlight for the prerequisites, only anatomy and physiology have that 5-year requirement. So all of the other science courses and the other prerequisites, if you took them 10 years ago, that's completely fine. Obviously, the more recent they are, the more recent that information will be in your brain, but it's just A&P that has that 5-year recency requirement. And all grades, official transcripts, the course needs to be completed, all of that by the November 1st deadline.
That also, the November 1st deadline also is the deadline for supporting admissions materials, so letters of recommendation and transcripts as well. There was a question about like, can I submit my transcripts to UC Davis through Parchment? Please don't send your transcripts to us. Please send them to Nursing Cast. You go onto their website, like Stephanie shared, the applicant help center. There are really good instructions on how to submit your transcripts directly to them. So they will receive, process your application, and then match it to, I'm sorry, process your transcripts and then match it to your application so it can be seen by UC Davis reviewers. Another question here. As Stephanie mentioned, the GRE is not required, but where should I send my scores if I have taken them?
I believe you can upload it into, there's like additional documents that you're able to upload. Amanda, I don't know if there's any other details.
Yeah, yes, I think you're right, Stephanie. You can upload them into Nursing Cast. You could work with Nursing Cast to get it uploaded. However, if you're rushing to do that by the November 1st deadline, trying to submit your GRE scores, you don't need to. We actually don't review them whatsoever. So if you're applying to other schools that like are reviewing the GRE, I would reach out to them to kind of see what their process is like for receiving and reviewing them. But you don't really have to worry about that for UC Davis. We actually do not look at standardized test scores during the application process. Let's see. What other questions? There is a good question for Dr. Regenberg. What attributes make a good nursing student? I think that might be interesting to address.
Sure. I think I think first of all, an ability to be self-directed. By that I mean that much of the learning that occurs for any of us is done at our own initiative. So having curiosity, a willingness to dig further, a belief that that there aren't really shortcuts. There's good use of resources, but the hard work of learning is something that really can't be shortcutted, if that's a word. And so I think curiosity, being self-directed, being willing to reach out for support when needed, meaning you have a grad advisor, you have instructors, there's a lot of people, the people on this team and their colleagues, there's a lot of people available to support, and sometimes I would say that that students wait until support to ask for support when they they might have asked a little sooner. So not being hesitant to seek support.
Thank you. And on the topic of support, are there tutoring resources available for students? And I guess maybe it would be a good time to talk about any other support resources students might have at UC Davis.
Sure. We have online learning assistant program, which is less tutoring and more support from alumni who come back and want to give some of their hard gained knowledge and tips for, how to apply things. Sometimes it's a matter of talking through an issue to think how might a student approach a thinking process, or what's a resource that can be particularly useful that maybe they haven't thought of, or um, things like that. And so that's one thing that our student affairs team puts together. That team also provides direct support for all of the logistics of the program. Obviously, they don't do the things for students or any of us, but they guide. They're kind of the experts to put people in touch with resources such as finance or wellness or um, accommodations for students with disabilities, or whatever it is that people need. They are good at connecting them with those people.
Thank you.
Amanda, if I could just answer something really quick.
Sure.
So if you are having any issues with a transcript evaluation, if you're having issues with receiving a transcript or anything like that, I encourage you to reach out to the institution directly or to the transcript evaluation service directly to see if they're able to either speed up the process of sending over the information or anything like that, just because we don't have any, we can't do anything about like something taking too long to be submitted on our end. Anything that's not received by the deadline will not be reviewed, and if we're missing a transcript, then that obviously hinders your review.
Along with the topic of like the deadline, is there another admission cycle after the November 1st deadline, Stephanie?
So yes, it would be for the following year. We accept applications once a year, so that would be for summer of 2027 that we would start recruiting for.
And let's see, someone was asking, can you give some examples of the verbal, group, and written communication courses?
Yeah, so public speaking can be used, interpersonal communications can be used. If you've taken an English composition course, that can be used for the written principles. There's a variety of different titles, I guess, that fall within those categories. If you have like specific questions on a course, you can always send us an email with the course title and course description, and we can give you more information on whether it satisfies a requirement or not.
Fantastic. And I know we're getting up to the time, so maybe just a couple of additional questions, a few more questions here. And they also put in the chat financial aid support resources, so that link will take you to some information about tuition and fees, financial aid requirement, or financial aid options. So please read through that as you're kind of thinking about attending our program specifically, or just nursing school in general. And you could also find a link to our fantastic financial aid team within that page. So if you have any questions about loans, or you're specific funding situation, you can reach out to financial aid even as an applicant, and they can also already start to advise you on steps you can take to prepare for paying for graduate school. So go ahead and use them as a resource. And then the second link that I included is just our general admissions information page for this MEPN program. All the information that Stephanie talked about today can be found there. We also have a really good FAQ page for some of these more specific questions that you're asking through our Q&A channel. So I encourage you to check that out. And then if we weren't able to get to your question today, I included our email address. Stephanie and and we have a bunch of other colleagues as well, admissions colleagues as well, are in that inbox during heavy seasons like right now, where we're kind of advising applicants on how to submit their applications. It could get a little bit busy, but if you email, someone will get back to you with answers to your questions. So please contact us if we can help in any way. Okay, let's find a couple of last questions in the Q&A. Dr. Ruggenberg, there's a lot of questions about clinicals. I know you mentioned, you kind of talked about them in the slides and also talked about what the weekly schedule looks like, but are you able to share some of the hospitals or clinics that we partner with for this program?
Well, it does change. Things move around a little bit. So, but I can tell you that about that we partner, of course, with UC Davis because we are a part of them, but but not all of our students go there. We partner with a couple of Kaiser facilities. We partner with the Veterans Administration. We have quite a few partners for subacute settings as well, mental health, and pediatrics. So it's a wide range, always subject to change. There are no guarantees where people get put. It's quite the puzzle. And that I would say is probably true of every program that I'm aware of.
Um, Stephanie and I work closely with the clinical team, and it is quite the puzzle, but they are great and fantastic at their jobs. With that, I just wanted to clarify, all of those clinical rotations are within, commutable distance from campus, correct?
Yes, but what we consider to be a commutable distance can range up to an hour. And that the further afield generally is for things like community health placements, public health, just because they tend to be smaller, but most of them are within a 40-minute drive from the UC Davis Health campus here in Sacramento.
Okay. Stephanie, I think we are at time, I believe. Do you want to close us out and kind of address any last minute things that you had on your mind?
Yeah. So again, thank you everyone for taking the time out of your day to come learn more about our program. As we've mentioned, please remember that November 1st deadline, 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you have any questions that we did not answer today at the information session during the Q&A, please send them to us via email. We are happy to help address any questions that you have. Please utilize those nursing CAS resources. And yeah, we hope to see your application come in here in the next few weeks. And we'll go from there. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your evening.